Sarah here, and I am 50 years old. Emily, my kid, has been under my raising since she turned 10. Her father died in a vehicle accident when she was young. I've always been there for her emotionally and financially. Though I'm not wealthy by any means, it wasn't always simple. I have worked hard to provide for her and offer her the greatest possibilities. I never imagined Emily, the one I love most, would provide the toughest obstacle in my life. Now in her late 20s, Emily was always a brilliant, gentle young woman. About 2 years ago, she met Jason. At first, I was just glad she had discovered someone who seemed to care about her. At first, it didn't trouble me since Jason came from an affluent family, much more than we ever were. Whatever background or position, people should be content with who they are. But I sensed something wasn't right the more I knew his family. Particularly his mother, Diana. Jason's parents were. Simply said, they were quite preoccupied with looks. Their world was all about status, who you knew, what your family was worth, what your last name was. From the beginning, I could clearly tell they gave me little thought. And that is just mildly accurate. They soon made it very evident that they wanted me out of their son's life, free of participation. They gently remarked here and there on how humble I was, on how different my background was from theirs. Stung, but I attempted to brush it off. Ultimately, I wanted only for my daughter to be happy. I wanted to avoid generating needless conflict. The turning point arrived when Jason suggested marriage to Emily. Though it ought to have been among the best events of our life, it soon turned into a nightmare. One evening, Emily gave me a call. Her voice trembled. Before she ever spoke, I sensed something was wrong. "Mom," she continued, her voice tense and stressed. "I have to talk to you about something." There became a knot in my gut. "What's happening, darling?" She stopped, and her voice seemed to be hesitant. "Jason's parents, they object to your attending the wedding." I sat there in startled quiet. "What do you mean they object to my presence there?" "Emily, your wedding is about here. Of course I am en route." "They said, you're not appropriate for their family," she replied, her voice faltering slightly, "that your attendance would set up a scene. They want no one believing they have ties to someone like you." What I was hearing defies belief. It felt to the gut like a hit. Of all people, Jason could let this happen. How could he not have defended me? Trying to stifle the tears, I continued, "Emily, I raised you. I have done everything I could have for you. And this is their repayment method? From excluding me?" She answered slowly at first, and I sensed she was torn. "I'm apologies, Mom, but they have made it abundantly evident that if you are there, they will not proceed with the wedding. I want to keep Jason, and I want to avoid starting further conflicts." "So, you're choosing them over me?" Her words hurt harder than anything she had ever spoken to me. I asked, hardly able to control the pain and annoyance in my voice. Her voice taut, she said, "I'm not choosing them over you. I just don't know what else to do. Everybody finds this to be ideal. Jason is in need of this, and that is best for us." It came to me at that point, desperate to fit into their world. My daughter Emily was ready to give up her relationship with me in order to accomplish it. It was about the life she believed she had to live, to be approved by this wealthy, shallow family. Not only about her wedding. And the idea of her turning her back on all I had taught her to satisfy them disgusted me as well. I wanted to yell, to let her know how much it hurt that she missed what was occurring. But I neglected it. I remained mute, although I told her I understood. In fact, I did not. Her throwing me aside like that, like I was nothing, confused me. I sat there trying to make sense of the phone in my palm once the call finished. How had we come here? How had things arrived at this point? I had always been by her side, given so much. Here she was, though, choosing the ease of riches and position above the love and encouragement I had given her over years. The wedding marked only the start of what proved to be a far more significant problem. The strain between us was more evident as the days passed. Seeing Emily seemed to be a continual reminder of what was happening. She changed from that point on. Her priorities had changed, and I was not included in them. I had no idea how to handle it, or encourage her to realize the world she was entering was not what it appeared to be. Still, she looked more and more remote whatever I said or did. Jason's family started pressing even more on me at the same time. They wanted to be sure I knew my place, that I shouldn't meddle in their well-created universe. Jason's mother, Diana, seized every chance to remind me that I was only an outsider. Though it was getting more difficult, I tried to bite my tongue. I couldn't handle it no more one night following another emotional dispute between Emily and me. All at once I felt wounded, enraged, and frustrated. I knew I couldn't just sit back and let them treat me this way. I could not allow them sour my bond with my daughter without action. But then what could I do? What could help Emily to understand? I came to a choice. Though I didn't take it lightly, I felt as though I had no alternative. I opened my laptop when I got home and began typing. I knew would garner attention, so I posted a Facebook note. I set out everything. How Jason's family had treated me, how Emily had watched and let it happen, how they had made me feel as though I was nothing. I let loose without thinking twice. I must have been heard. Though at that instant that was the only idea I could think of, maybe it was not the best one. I experienced an unusual mix of anxiety and relief once I pressed submit. Though I knew there would be fallout, I didn't give a damn. I had to get them to see what they were creating. I have to inform the world the truth. Little did I realize that post would start a series of events transforming everything. I was unsure of what I expected the moment I uploaded it. Though deep down I knew that wasn't going to happen, a tiny part of me hoped it would vanish in the clamor of social media. Individuals were scheduled to view it. People would respond. And individuals would respond as well. It was unlike anything I had blogged about my life previously, particularly not anything this intimate. I must have spoken out, though. I couldn't let Jason's family stroll all over me, and I couldn't sit by silently as Emily turned aside all I had done for her. Though not aesthetically pleasing, what I stated in that piece was the truth. I made it plain how I had been treated, how they treated me like I was less than them, merely because of my income level. I told out how Emily, my own daughter, had not stood up for me at most crucial times, and I spoke candidly about how they controlled her in order to fit their high society bubble. I started to rage, I took damage, and I was not about to let anyone, especially them, off with it. The few hours that followed my posting seemed to be a whirl. I had no idea how rapidly things would turn cold. People who watched it were not only friends and relatives. People from all walks of life contacted me. Strangers who had been in same circumstances, who had felt the sting of having their children or families reject them because they did not fit the proper mold. Support notes began to come in, and for the first time in days I felt heard. Not everyone, though, was this encouraging. The parents of Reggie, Paul and Diana, started to lose it. When Paul initially contacted me, I could almost feel the strain through the phone. There was no courteous, let's talk about this kind of exchange. No, it was a demand, a diatribe, a denunciation. Take it down, he said, barking. This is compromising the standing of my family. Sarah, you have to pull that post right now. The chuckle that escaped me was uncontrollable. I laughed because it was ludicrous, not because it was amusing. How could he be more worried about the standing of his family than about their attempt to damage mine? Why would he not find the irony in his own behavior? Although it was damaging their image, they wanted me to pull it down. But what about the damage they had caused me? Trying to chill myself, I responded firmly, I'm not taking it down. You cannot silence me only because your priceless reputation is online. What do you think you are doing? He carried on, his voice tinged with contempt. Everything will be ruined by this. Do you wish to keep your daughter far from all of us always? That stung more than I would have cared to confess. Still, I was not going to back off. I am not the one spoiling things. Diana and you have already accomplished plenty of it. Perhaps it's time each of you paid for your deeds. Through the phone, I heard his jaw closing. Though he wasn't happy, I wasn't stopping. I simply tuned him off as he screamed on. Not one more thing to say. The true turning point came when I saw Jason, who had been quiet up until now, decide to intervene. When he phoned me, I could sense the stress in his voice, first in line since all of this began. Though it wasn't the kind of upset I was used to, he was unhappy. This time, it was quite urgent. His voice strained, he said, Sarah, I need you to take the post down. Surely. Still silent for a minute, I tried to understand what he was asking. You want me to pull it down? Indeed, he said, his voice hardly audible above a whisper. Look, Emily is caught between two. With this, you are separating us. Do you want to watch your daughter suffering? Though I felt a knot in my throat, I wouldn't let it control me. Jason, I'm not the one doing the tearing. You and your folks made decisions, and Emily created her own. Now you want me to pretend I didn't get pushed aside for the benefit of a wedding? Forget what's happened. I will not engage in it, not for anyone specifically. For what seemed like an age, there was stillness on the other side of the line. When he spoke once more at last, it was not with wrath. Frustrated, was it? You don't understand, he murmured softly. It goes beyond the wedding these days. About everything. My folks are losing their sanity. If you fail to remove it, they are even threatening to phone attorneys and launch legal action. They already discuss how your post will negatively affect their company. I let my eyes roll back. Their business? Jason, your parents are more worried about their company than about moral standards. About Emily. What is it? About her happiness. What is it? His voice shivered. Sarah, you are breaking her apart. I have never seen her in this state. She is upset. I stopped, a sudden guilt pinging through me. Not that it changed anything, though. You should advise your parents to allow your fiancé participate in her own life and quit dictating things. She might then not be in this mess. The stillness was protracted, and I could hear him pacing in the background. He spoke once more at last. Sarah, I cannot make them change, but if you pull it down, perhaps they will back off. They will come back to you apologizing. They will correct this. You still don't get it, Jason, I said, a surge of irritation rising in me. This goes beyond a straightforward apology. It's about dignity. It's about being regarded as an equal, not some tool for enhancing the reputation of your family. Emily and you cannot hide behind that anymore. For that, he had no reply. To be honest, I never expected him to. Jason mentioned something that stayed with me before we stopped talking. I'm sorry, Sarah, but I have to consider Emily as well as our future. Please no. I answered slowly, rather right away. In what way, might I say? Not sure I could ever grasp. Emily, the person I had reared and loved, seemed different when I hung the phone. She was enmeshed in a world of riches and prestige out of reach for me. And Jason, he wasn't substantially improved. As was natural, he chose them. I was not going to stop, though. Not for them, clearly not for their image. The distance remained thus as well. I wasn't moving. Even Jason and his dad begged for the post to come down. No matter how much it hurt, I refused to be the one to distort the truth. Because occasionally, the only thing left to grab onto is the truth. Funny how fast things go out of hand after one stone is dropped into a pond. No matter how hard you try to stop them, the ripples simply keep expanding. That exactly was occurring to me. I originally felt I could manage the strain. I reasoned that eventually things would quiet down if I simply stayed put. But they neglected. I was there in the center of it, waiting for the lid to blow off as the planet seemed to have turned into a pressure cooker. Things did not improve following my final chat with Jason. Their situation only grew worse. Every time we spoke, Emily, my daughter, was caught between her fiancé's family and me and showed tension in her eyes. She persisted in texting, phoning, begging me to remove the post, but my wrath erupted once more each time I saw her name on my phone. She could hardly ask me to do that. How could she ask me to behave as though everything was fine when it wasn't, then toss away my dignity? One night she called, her voice full of feeling, and I knew she was on the brink, her voice cracking. "Mom, please," she pleaded. "I am unable of handling this anymore. I want you to pull the post down. It hurts Reggie as well, not only me. Neither will his parents back down. This entire process is wrecking everything. We are breaking apart over this." Though it didn't change anything for me, I could hear the suffering in her voice. "Emily, I cannot just pretend as nothing happened. You know the reason I acted. You know why I behaved like I did. They treated me as though I was useless, and you did not defend me. How am I supposed to let that go?" She sat silent for a minute, and I sensed she was trying to find the proper words. Her tone of voice when she did speak once more changed from one of imploring need. Now her voice had an edge, one I had not heard before. Mom, you just don't get it. I am not asking you to let it go. You should help me to correct this. I cannot continue to live this way. I love you. You are my mother. Nevertheless, Reggie represents my future. We can repair problems if you help me to downplay that post. That was there. The essence of it is, she was telling me I was inadequate, that my love, my years of selflessness, my constant support, they were less important than the life she expected to be leading with Reggie and his family. Like a slap to the face, the awareness came to me. She had picked them above me. Emily. I stopped off, unsure of how to express what I was feeling. You want me to wipe away my words as well as my treatment? And you want me to accomplish this for another person? For his parents, for their stature? In relation to their wealth? Her voice stumbled once more, but she persisted. No, you are supposed to be doing this for me. For us? Mom, I cannot keep battling them. I cannot find myself sandwiched in the center of this. Simply said, I want things to return to normal. Thank you, I implore you here. My chest contracted. It was not like I had no idea where she was coming from. She was in a difficult position, sandwiched between two universes that couldn't be more unlike. But she seemed to be pushing me away more the more she begged. She seemed to want simply her side, not any understanding of mine. I'm not going to delete the truth, Emily, I responded, my voice quivering with a mix of hurt and frustration. Not for everyone. I cannot allow them believe they can simply trample all over me and get off with it. And I will not allow you believe that is acceptable either. Her quiet on the other side of the telephone was all I needed to know. Now she had no idea what to say to me. Deep down, she realized she was the one who had chosen to let it all slide. Therefore, she had no idea how to reverse this. And no matter how much it hurt, I was not about to back down in defending myself. The next few days were even more difficult. That chat, I could sense our distance widening. Emily cut off her regular calls. Our quick, intense conversations were. Her voice had a coldness not before evident in it, and I couldn't overlook her lack of correspondence to me in the same manner as Reggie's parents did. Not one of us was driving this division. These were indeed. The conflict now rested not only between my daughter and me. It also fell between the families of Emily and Reggie. Paul and Diana, his parents, were unrelenting in their requests of me to remove the post. And clearly, they had impact over Reggie. He seemed about to break beneath the strain. He called me several times, but each time he seemed more agitated than the previous. Sarah, kindly, I implore you here. This is spiraling out of control. Legal action is threatened by my parents. Their lawyer is already under conversation with them. They want you sued for slander. What I was hearing seemed almost unbelievable. In my post, I had been only honest. Now, legal threats were meant to silence me. Their nerve is something. Trying to seem cool, I advised your parents to go ahead. Though I was everything from tranquil. Let them accompany me to court. I'm not going back down, Reggie. Already they have done sufficient harm. These days they are trying to discredit me and my name. Not transpires. Reggie did not answer right away. He spoke with a softer voice when he did. I never dreamed it would reach this point. Just not sure how to fix this, Sarah. Would you kindly at least discuss this? I had nothing to say anymore. How might I approach someone who had selected their parents above me in a logical manner regarding their impact on our relationship? I'm done talking, Reggie, I said. There is nothing left to say. You have to correct this with your parents, not with me. The one allowing them to rule your life is you. I shall not be involved with it anymore. The line became quiet. I wasn't sure whether he was only too terrified to confront the truth or whether he understood. But I understood something at that same instant. This went beyond Reggie or his family now. It was not about working with Emily to correct things. It spoke of me, about defending myself, about refusing to let anyone, friends, relatives, even my own daughter, walk all over me. I had no intention of backtracking, not for everybody. The days following the dispute with Jason and his family seemed like a slow burn. After then, I didn't hear from them for some time. Part of me believed perhaps they had finally backed off. I was aware, though, that was untrue. People like them did not back off readily. They were overly preoccupied with their appearance and driven to rule those around them. A few days later, I came into an Emily and Jason internet announcement. Their wedding had been formally shelved. It struck more powerfully than I had anticipated. They said it was because of unavoidable circumstances, but the way the statement was phrased made it quite evident what was actually going on. The results of my post have gone beyond a personal dilemma. It had developed into something far more grande. Jason's parents made it abundantly obvious to them that the wedding couldn't proceed if I went. Their image and reputation, all that counted to them. Not the passion Jason and Emily share. Not Emily's bond with me, just public opinion. Emily was not ready for that kind of pressure, in my opinion. To be honest, until it began influencing everything she cared about, she probably had no idea how far it ran. Watching her fall under the weight of her family's expectations, or learning she hadn't really chosen me over them, after all, was not clear to me which hurt more. But that was it. The wedding had to be postponed. They didn't say indefinitely, but it was obvious they couldn't move forward with anything as long as my post was online. The family's priceless reputation was far too brittle. Jason called me once more at that point. This time he was composed, perhaps overly calm, as if he were attempting to control the circumstances. "We have to talk," he said. "Sarah, I want to stop battling. Everything that has happened has caused the wedding to be delayed now. Still, we need you to pull the post down." I not had to consider it. "No," I responded with great conviction. "I'm not downgrading it." "Please, for Emily's benefit," he begged. "You know how much this means to her. Unless you pull it off, the wedding is not happening. Everything is disintegrating right now, and I have no idea what to do going forward. Her parents are driving her into a corner. They want no more drama." Though his voice had weight, my heart was heavy with disappointment. It was all the same. His parents' preferences, their impression, their expectations. Emily's pleasure had become little more than a box to check. It was agonizing. Trying to control my feelings, I said, "Jason, this isn't only about a wedding. This concerns their treatment of me, and considering their treatment of Emily. Since it bothers them, you want me to simply hide the truth? You honestly believe that to be the solution?" He stopped, and I sensed his irritation mounting. "I understand it's unfair, but right now Emily's future is under discussion here. Her life among us. Of that, the wedding represents a minor portion. You could assist us to correct this. Only you can help them to see reason." More determined than I felt. "I'm not doing that, Jason," I said. "They should start by apologizing if they wish to correct this. I won, however, pretend as though everything is good when it is not. Each of you must deal with the results of your deeds, though I wasn't ready to cave either. I don't think he was ready for me to bring the topic back on him. His parents now possessed the desired level of influence over Emily's life and wedding. I was not going to allow them, nevertheless, rule over me. "I understand you find yourself in a difficult position," I said. "I am not the villain in this, though. Emily and you have to start by challenging your parents if you truly want things right, not asking me to destroy everything simply because they're too proud to atone." Before Jason spoke once more, there was a protracted silence during which his voice grew quieter. "Sarah, I wish you could see the effort I'm making. I'm not sure how I would remedy this, though." "I know," I murmured gently. "But you will have to work things out, Jason, as I am not the one that broke this." He ignored him, and the discussion stopped a few more tense words later. That was not the end of it, but I knew Jason, Emily, and I were stuck in a web of expectations we couldn't readily untangle, power battles, and damaged emotions. By now, I was not even sure what would follow. Could the wedding ever go place? At last, would Emily and Jason decide upon a life free from the influence of their parents? I knew quite definitely that I would not be backing down. I was going to let them believe they could control me into quiet, and should that imply the wedding never took place, so be it. Months went by since my Facebook post caused fallout. Though things had calmed, the tension still permeated the air like smoke following a fire. I never knocked down the post. It also didn't change the reality that Emily and I were still on opposing sides, even if those who knew me or had been in like circumstances had given me lots of support. With his parents, Reggie, they still belonged out of my life, and I did not see how that would ever change. But life has a weird way of surprising you when you least expect it. Saturday morning rain was falling as Emily and Reggie arrived at my door. I hadn't anticipated them. I had chosen my route. I had honestly persuaded myself that I would never see them again, that they had chosen theirs. When Emily's face appeared through the window, I had no idea what to think. She was not on her own. Sitting next to her, Reggie was looking really terrified. My gut went tight right away. Rain-drenched, they stood on my porch, and I could sense the weight of their choice hanging on their shoulders. "Mom, could we have a conversation?" Emily inquired quietly. Uncertain of what to do, I watched them for a long time. Part of me wanted to tell them they had made their decisions and turn them away. Now they had to live with them. Still, another side of me, that which still loved my daughter, could not be overlooked. I went to open the door. "Come in," I replied, even though my voice seemed constricted. "Let's chat." We sank into the living room. There was thick, embarrassing quiet between us. Emily began talking first, her voice almost above a whisper. "Mom, we came here wanting to apologize. We are aware of our hurting of you." Her eyes were red, and she appeared to have not slept in days. "We are really sorry for everything we have put you through." She seemed to be wearing the weight of what had happened. Quiet until recently. Reggie spoke up with a steady but regretful voice. "I'm sorry as well. I knew I ought to have been at your side, Sarah. I let my parents run my life, and I disappointed Emily as well." His comments really spoke to me more than I had expected. I wanted to keep feeling furious. I wanted to hang on to the resentment that had been my shield for so long. Still, I could see they were not merely apologizing because they felt they ought to. They were sorry since they really understood how mistaken they had been. "You let me down too, Reggie," I added gently, not sure whether he would grasp. "But just now I see differently. It involved more than just you. It related to your parents and their hold on you." "I understands." Emily nodded while she cleaned her eyes. "We are not going to let them run over us anymore. That life is not what we wish for. These days, we wish not to be puppets. We want to lead our own life and make our own decisions." Knowing that they had been battling with their decisions for so long, the words were difficult for me to hear. It transcended the family strife or the wedding. Their whole lives had been shaped by the expectations of others. "We have made some decisions," Reggie said, his voice wavering yet resolute. "We eloped. Last week was our wedding day. Right now, it is just us." Shock drove me to fix my gaze on him. My head spun. They were done with it. They had really carried out as advised. I wasn't sure whether I should be proud or furious, but I understood something at that same instant. For themselves, they had made a decision. It was not with reference to anyone else. And perhaps, just perhaps, that was the kind of bravery they required all along. My voice heavy with feeling, I said, "I don't know what to say. You have both endured a lot. This, however, this is a positive directional move." With real eyes, Reggie glanced at me. "I know I have screwed up, and I wouldn't count on you forgiving me straight immediately. We are done with their control, though, and you should know about this. Right now, we are crafting our own future." I back off, trying to digest it. Those were grown-ups. I have to respect their decisions since they made them. Though I couldn't agree with everything, I could tell they were finding their own way, even if it hurt, and I could find my heart ready to pardon them for that. My voice gentle, I continued, "You're not perfect, and I'm not perfect. But one thing I have discovered over all this: there is no pleasing everyone in life. It is about acting in your best interests. I only hope you never forget that." The weight of the last few months stayed the same overnight. Our relationship still showed deep, deep flaws that would not go away with an apology by itself. Still, it was just a beginning. For now, too, that was plenty. Though I could see in their eyes that they were truly attempting to right things, they did not expect me to forgive them straight away. And that indicated something. Though I had no idea what the future held, for the first time in a long time, I felt as though we might be able to negotiate a forward path. "Thank you," Emily said, her voice full of release, "for listening here, for comprehending." I shook my head. "Remember, I am still your mommy. I will also be here always, regardless of what." The chat came to a subdued close. Though at least we were traveling it together, I knew the road ahead would not be easy. That is all I could ask for. Funny how life seems to change when you least expect it. After all the turmoil, the disagreements, the heartache, I felt I would never hear from Emily or Jason again. I knew the split was too great to heal, too deep. As it happened, though, I was mistaken. After the turmoil of the wedding being postponed, months passed. The air between us was thick, and I stayed far as the globe kept whirling. I left the post up. I never even thought about deleting it. The only thing I had left to hang on to, the only thing providing some sense of control, seemed to be still. The quiet tormented me. That was challenging. There were times when I questioned whether my stance had amounted to a major error. Then one day, I was seated at the kitchen table gazing out the window when someone knocked on the door. Nobody was expected, hence my heart skipped a beat when I saw who it was. Standing there, Emily and Jason both seemed uneasy, as though they lacked direction on how to start. I waited to talk right immediately. I just stared at them, my thoughts whirlpool of emotions, anger, uncertainty, and, strangely, hope. Emily got up first to talk. "Mom," she began gently, "we have to talk. Tell me, please." What to say was unknown to me, though another part of me, something I hadn't quite acknowledged until that moment, wanted to hear them out. Part of me wanted to bang the door in their faces and urge them to leave. Standing there, my daughter seemed more like the little child I knew than the stranger she had evolved into. I yawned and moved aside to let them in. We sat down, and the tension in the room was so strong I could feel it stranding against my chest. It felt like a bad dream, as though I was waiting for someone to rouse me. Emily started the quiet breaking process first. "Mom, I have been considering all of it, and I know Jason and I both have hurt you. I apologize." I tried to collect my ideas by silence for a long period. Her eyes revealed a real honesty. She was feeling something, not only stating the words. That is something I had missed. I had not understood until that precise moment just how much I needed to hear that apology. Jason nodded with sadness shining in his eyes. "We both made so many mistakes," he remarked softly. "I know I did not defend you as I ought to have done. I let everything be dictated by my parents and let it separate us. I'm apologies. I was mistaken." We both amply reflect. Their words weighed heavily, and for the first time in months I sensed a flutter of optimism. Hope we might perhaps reconstruct anything from the ground up. Just maybe. Still, part of me was wary. Still raw and real, the damage remained. Should I pardon them? Could I really go past the suffering they have caused? "I'm not sure," I answered, sounding wobbly. "It's difficult for me. Two of you. You let them to rule everything. You let them strip everything from me without ever considering it. Over many years, I have been your mother. Ultimately, you both chose them." When I looked at Jason, I saw the regret on his face for first time. "I was a coward, Sarah," he said. "I wanted to keep the life I felt I ought to be living. I sought everything, Emily. The future, the legacy. If it meant losing you, though, it mattered nothing. Right now, I have realized these days, none of it interests me. I just want you to help me to make things right." With her voice shaking, Emily stretched out and clasped my hand. "Mom, the wedding or the money don't really matter to me. About you, I worry. I have been blind to all you did for me. I let their influence and my own selfishness to distort things. I really am sorry." Hearing their apologies was not easy. It resembled removing a scab I wanted not to touch. Still, part of me, that which still loved them despite all, wanted to try. Though I knew I could never trust them once more, I wanted to stop fighting. I inhaled deeply, then stared at both of them. "It will take time," I answered, my voice firm. "I will not be forgetting what happened. Still, perhaps, possibly we could try once more. Still, we have to be straightforward with one another. There are no secrets now, no more lies. Rebuilding calls for us to start from the ground up." Both nodded, relief shining in their eyes. And I sensed a weight release from my shoulders for the first time in months. Nothing magically corrected itself over the next few weeks. One had to learn trust once more. And right under the surface, the conflict still existed between us. Still, Emily and Jason were doing the work. They were demonstrating to me that they intended what they claimed. They were working at rebuilding our relationship. And I began to believe in them once more, little by bit. Perhaps we never would return to the past, but I came to see that was not our aim. That was plenty. We were headed on. I could not turn back the past. Still, I harbored hope for the future, first in a long time. And it was all I require.